Hello, welcome to Tales Under the Cat Tree. My name is Dileepu Jayawardena, better known as Dupes. In this podcast, we'll explore the wonderful worlds created by words on paper, from technology and the future to fiction and other realms. If you want to get to know me and find out who I am, you can listen to episode number 1, where I attempt to put you to sleep with all the gory details. Please remember that all my writing is available on my Substack at tales.dupes.ca, including the articles that make up this episode. If you enjoy this or any of my writing, please do subscribe to either this podcast or the Substack, where I hope to bring you articles, stories, and interviews regularly. Welcome to episode number 7 for the week of June 15th, 2025. There are many things that were alien to me when I first moved to Finland. One such was the concept of flag days. For those in Finland who take these for granted, for much of the world that I have at least lived in, there are no specific rules around when the national flag is flown. Yes, many rules about how and where, but not often when. In Finland, specific days are designated flag days, and only on those days can the Finnish blue cross on a white field go up across the country's many flagpoles which are otherwise empty. They celebrate days of remembrance, national importance, and of course, religious events like Christmas. At the end of this week, there is a special 3-day event when you can see the Finnish national flag across every town, city, hamlet, and most importantly, the summer cottage, a mökki, as they are known in Finnish. It is Midsummer, otherwise known as Juhannus in Finnish and Midsommar in Swedish. Midsummer in Finland is truly a day of white nights. Across the Arctic Circle, past Rovaniemi to the Arctic Ocean, the sun is at its highest, the day at its longest. If you have never witnessed the quality of that light, I hope everyone listening will one day. Purely and simply, it is otherworldly. Another thing that happens in this Finnish startup to the summer is the opening of summer cottage season. And from the very tip of Finland to the southern archipelago, summer cottages are occupied. As generations change, remote summer cottages are handed down within a family. However, they can get quite expensive and hard to maintain. Despite being at the heart of Finnish culture, not all cottages continue their existence, and you can see that more and more with changing times, changing cultures, and changing climates. This episode is in 2 parts. For the first part is the story The Cottage on the Shores of Ulikitka, a story that I recently wrote, which is read in both Finnish and English. In the second part, there is a piece about my experiences from Midsummer some years ago, and this was when I spent it in the west coast of the Finnish archipelago. But first, I want to bring you a piece of poetic prose that I wrote about the mökki season. I will give more detail after the piece. Crazy as this may sound, even though my Finnish is pretty much non-existent, I imagine this piece in Finnish. So I want you to hear the Finnish version first, as read by Kai Mäkelä, translated by Suvi Salmilampi and Kai Mäkelä. You can of course skip ahead to the English version of this story.
Mökki Ylikitkan rannalla. Nukutko sinä? Kysyn, koska minä en nuku. Ensimmäinen henkilö, jonka muistan astuneen ovestani sisään, istui paljalle lattialleni. Sisään ei raahattu huonekaluja, sen sijaan hän ripusti kuvia, maalauksia ja muita esineitä. En kuitenkaan voinut nähdä sisälleni kertoakseni, mitä ne esittivät. Tunsin, kuinka nauloja paukutettiin seiniini, ja kuulin tyytyväisiä hymähdyksiä. Näin kynttilävalon lepattavan ikkunoisteni yöttömään yöhön. Hän vietti täällä päivä toisensa jälkeen ja nukkui lattialla noina lukuisina öinä, niin lyhyitä kuin ne olivatkin siihen aikaan vuodesta. Hän yhdisti oveni pitkospuihin, jotka veivät soisen pihan yli. Jokainen reitti kasvoi pitkos pitkokselta, kulkien juuri kostean maan ja varpujen yllä, kiertäen korkeat koivut. Yhdet pitkospuut veivät venevajalle, toiset järvelle ja sen pienelle rannalle. Laituri kiinnitettiin yhtenä kuumana kesänä, heti kuikan lopetettua pesintänsä rannan poukamassa. Sauna valmistui samana vuonna. Aurinko oli korkealla taivaalla, ja ellei lännestä lähestynyt myrskyrintamaa, se hädin tuskin sipaisi horisonttia. Pitkospuiden kautta tunsin saunan lämmön, koivukaarnan rätinän, kuusenpihkan paukahtelun sekä kuumilla kivillä tanssahtelevien vesipisaroiden sijahdukset. Hän palasi vuosi vuoden jälkeen. Joka vuosi kausi alkoi hänen paineessaan kätensä ovelleni muutama viikko lumien sulettua. Juuri päättyneenä, loputtoman pimeinä kuukausina lumia ja jää olivat kerrostuneet niin paksuksi peitteeksi, että ulkomaailma oli kuin tukahdutettu muisto. Silloin tällöin näkyi kettujen kaivamia koloja, hangella vilistäviä hiiriä ja jäniksiä. Sitten aurinko vihdoin ilmestyi, ensin vain kajastuksena aidan takaa kurkistaen. Kun lumi suli lankuiltani ja pystyin kurkottamaan rantaa ja laiturille, tiesin hänen tulevan pian. Ilma täyttyi lintujen ja eläinten äänistä, huhuilusta ja ulvonnasta, piipityksestä ja vikinästä, surinasta ja pörinästä, kunnes lopulta kuului moottorin hurinaa ja mies astui ovesta sisään. Huokasin ja rauhoituin. Hän puuhasi sitä sun tätä. Rakensi veneitä, vasaroi linnunpönttöjä, kunnosti kulkureittejä, maalasi seiniä. Yhdestä tuli monta. Lapsia, jotka juoksivat ja hyppivät, uivat ja kiipesivät, nauroivat ja itkivät, leikkivät ja kasvoivat. Oli työn täyteisiä päiviä, laiturillanne vietettyjä päiviä ja päiviä, jotka kuluivat saunalla ja rannalla. Joka vuosi kausi päättyi miehen viimeiseen painallukseen oveni pintaan. Hyvästi ja kiitos samassa kosketuksessa. Päivien lyhentyessä kuikka vaikeni poikastensa opittua lentämään. Katolleni ja pitkospuille liimautui märkiä lehtiä. Kuin kellon tarkkuudella hiljaisessa metsässä tiesin ensi lumen tulevan. Nukutko sinä? Minä en pysty. Kerran käsi tuli myöhään vuodesta. Paljon juhannuksen jälkeen kuikan syysmuuton aikaan. Käsi oli heikko, ahavoitunut ja uupunut. Hän laahusti pitkospuillani. Lapset tömistelivät kiireessä. He eivät olleet käyneet vuosiin, vain hän oli. He kävelivät ponnekkaasti, hän ei. He sulkivat saunan ja tyhjensivät huoneet. Hän käveli yhtä komarassa kuin rannan puut, jotka olivat nojanneet liian kauan järveltä puhaltavaa tuulta vasten. Hän taivuttautui viimeisen viipyilevään kosketukseensa. Juhannukset ovat aina kuten ennenkin, ja kuikka saapuu joka vuosi tekemään uuden poikueen. Pitkospuuni pettävät pian. En ylety enää laiturille kuten ennen. Laiturikin kohosi, halkesi ja lopulta pirstaloitui ahtojään puristuksessa. Tunnen katon ja savupiipun läpi putoavan lumen ja jään kylmyyden. Seinäni ovat kosteat homeesta ja sammaleesta. Vain hiiret pitävät minulle seuraa. Nukutko sinä? Pelkään, että pian minäkin nukun.
The Cottage on the Shores of Ulikitka. Do you sleep? I'm asking you this because I do not sleep. The first person I remember who entered my door sat down on my bare floor. There was no scratching of the furniture to come. He hung up pictures, paintings, and other things, though I cannot see within to tell you what they were about. I could feel the pounding of the nails against my walls. I heard the satisfied grunts. I saw the wavering candlelight spill through my windows into a sunlit night. He was here day after day. He slept on the floor those many nights, short as they were that time of year. He connected my door with wooden walkways over the boggy yard. Each path inched itself forward, plank by plank, standing just above the wet soil and brushy plants while skirting the tall birch trees. One walkway to a boathouse, another the lake and its small beach. The dock was attached during another hot summer, when the kuikka had just finished nesting in the bay. The sauna was built that same year. The sun was high in the sky, and unless there was a storm blowing in from the west, it barely kissed the horizon. Through the planks, I felt the sauna's warmth, the crackle and pops from birch and pine sap, the sizzle of water drops dancing on the hot stones. He came year after year. Every year the season began with his hand on my door some weeks after the snow had melted. In the long, unending darkness of the months that had just passed, layers of snow and ice would have fallen on each other, forming blankets so thick the world outside was a smothered memory. There was an occasional burrowing of foxes, mice, and flittering rabbits. The sun would finally appear, a sliver at first, peeking over the fence. The day the snow melted from my planks and I could stretch all the way to the beach and dock, I knew he would come. The world grew noisy with birds and animals, with hoots and yells, pips and squeaks, buzzes and whirs, until finally the drone of an engine and the man stepped through the door. I sighed and settled. He worked on this and that. Boats were built, birdhouses hammered, paths refreshed, walls painted. One turned into many. Children came who ran and jumped, swam and climbed, laughed and cried, played and grew. There were days of work, days just spent on my dock, days passed between sauna and beach. Every year the season would end with that parting stroke by the man on my door, a farewell and a thanks in one touch. As the days grew shorter, the quikka fell silent after its chicks learned to fly. The leaves were many and wet on my roofs and walkways. Like clockwork in the silent forest, I knew the snow would come. Do you sleep? I cannot. One day, the hand came late in the year, far past midsummer, closer to when the quikka was set to leave. The hand was weak, weathered, and weary. He shuffled along my paths. The children stomped in a hurry. They had not visited in years, only he had. They walked with authority, he did not. They closed the sauna and emptied the rooms. He walked bent, like the trees that stood too long against the lake winds on the beach. He was bowed over in his last lingering touch. The midsummers are as they have always been, and the quikka comes each year with a new brood. My walkways are failing now. I cannot reach out to the dock as I used to. The dock itself burst, cracked and splintered in the solid winter ice. I feel the chill of the snow and ice that has fallen through the roof and chimney. My walls are soggy with mildew and mold. Only the mice keep me company. Do you sleep? I'm afraid I will too, soon. First, I want to thank Suvi Salmilampi and Kai Makela for translating my original into good Finnish. Translating fiction is difficult, and if you want a great translation of Finnish to English, please read the latest version of Unknown Soldiers or The Unknown Soldier by Vaino Linna, as translated by Liesel Yamaguchi. The voice for that piece was Kai Makela, whose voice I imagined when I wrote the piece. The place is real. Ulikitka is a beautiful lake in north-central Finland, near the city of Kuusamo. The cottage is mostly real, but the story is, of course, complete fiction. This story is dedicated to Valter Salmilampi, whose hands built a beautiful and serene cottage on the shores of Ulikitka. And if you wonder what a quikka sounds like, well, a Canadian would recognize the bird as a form of loon. It is a sad thing to see old Finnish mökkis be demolished as generations change. However, the culture of going to mökkis will likely never go away. Whether you are a new Finn or an old Finn, the power of nature and life at midsummer has you in its sway. The next piece is from 2018, and it is written about one midsummer tradition by friends in the archipelago near Nagu. Nagu is a magical place, and the islands some of the most beautiful in the world. Between May and June, Finland undergoes a cultural metamorphosis. After many months of darkness, like leaves budding from branches or a beautiful butterfly exploding from its chrysalis, the Finns come to life in the brilliant sunshine that greedily gobbles ever larger chunks of the night sky. Then comes the solstice, the longest day of the year, Juhannus in Finnish, Midsummer in Swedish. My first midsummer celebration just completed on the islands of Finland's most massive archipelago. I celebrated with Kai Arne, Monty Videnius, and other former MySQL colleagues and friends amongst the islands surrounding Nagu, about 3 hours by bus from Helsinki in southwestern Finland. This area is populated primarily by Swedish Finns, and like everywhere in Finland, The midsummer traditions run deep. The islands are far from the major cities and dotted with summer cabins to which all of Helsinki flees the day before midsummer. Having now witnessed the mass exodus, visiting Helsinki during Juhannus would probably be the equivalent of visiting a ghost town, complete with tumbleweeds. This year's solstice day dawned windy and stormy. The first order of business was to gather around a flagpole and raise the Finnish flag. I noted later that there was hardly a cabin in the archipelago without a Finnish flag flying high and proud during midsummer. With the flag now happily dancing in the Baltic wind, the celebrations could begin. I cannot condense a 2-day celebration into a simple article, so here are some of the highlights freeze-framed in my mind. Retiring to the main cabin of Nina and Ralph Walston, I was instructed that the 30 guests were to sit man, woman, in that order. Along with the usual cutlery, there were 2 slight differences that caught my eye: a book of songs in Swedish and Finnish next to the plate, and a shot glass. Starters of new locally grown potatoes, homemade rye bread, and many types of herring were passed around and the shot glasses filled. Dining turned out to be a constant race between downing enough food or getting mightily tipsy. Every few minutes, a designated person, Bjorn the first night, Kai the second, would start a song. We few foreigners, there were a couple besides me, would reach for the book and join in, ending with a raised shot glass, a cheer, skål to the right, a skål to the left, and a skål to the person opposite. The women do left, right, and center. There were songs about university, songs about people, songs about U-boats, and yes, songs about drinking in both Swedish and Finnish. The songs were animated, complete with train whistles, submarine gurgles, and coordinated table thumps. This was a group of people who had grown up together with these traditions, and now their children were being trained in the same traditions. Despite my inability to contribute in Swedish or Finnish, with enough shots, I massacred a Sri Lankan song and Newfoundland's Rolling of the Sea. As you can imagine, the sobriety level decreased, the joy increased, and the food was always plentiful. Even the neighbors joined in with an accordion and a guitar. Of course, both nights ended with the obligatory sauna, punctuated with the naked jumps into the cold Baltic Sea and leisurely runs back to a hot tub or sauna. For me, this was very much like showing up in Outport, Newfoundland at Christmas time. Food, drinks, good cheer, and such an electricity of pure, unadulterated joy that you would have had to have a heart of cold not to enjoy the festivities. With vodka shots, drinking songs, and saunas, you have the perfect recipe for a night turning to day with nary a blink of an eye, or perhaps more appropriately said, with nary the quick downing of a shot of salmiakki. I didn't feel homesick. Okay, maybe a little, considering the late night, slightly drunken phone call to Montreal. But certainly, I felt right at home in the woods, in a cabin, with such amazing company, food, music, singing, and wine. While I have experienced many events in Finnish culture that I have found both fascinating and joyful, so far the most joyously friends and family-filled celebration has been Juhannus. I can't wait to experience it again in another year. I will at least, as with everyone else here, have something to look forward to in the dead of winter when the sun barely bothers to get up. Of course, it would also be nice if my liver also recovered by then. I hope you enjoyed this episode. It is the first to contain a recently written short story, which means I would love your feedback. Unlike many of my pieces, this was written on a Friday evening, fixed up within a week, and published here within 10 days. I was extremely lucky that my insanely talented writing group happened to be meeting in that time and were able to give solid and creative feedback. So this week, I would like to give special thanks to Liz, Paul, Julius, Baiba, and Victor for the feedback and for driving me to better myself. Much of their suggestions made it in just in time. Some of it will have to wait for a new version, though. Extremely special thanks again to Suvi Salmilampi and Kai McKellar for the translation of A Cottage on the Shores of Ulikitka, and especially Kai for an excellent reading in Finnish. Kai, you managed it in 2 takes, which I am stupendously impressed at. If you're in Finland this week, happy Midsummer. Hyvää Juhannusta, glad Midsummer, and have a great, wonderful long weekend. Please do drop me a line. You can reach me through email, contact@dupes.ca, bluesky@dupes.ca, or on my site and this post at tales.dupes.ca. Remember to subscribe so I can get to know you better and learn from you. Give your pet a cuddle and your loved ones a hug till we meet again for some tales under the cat tree.